Good evening, and Mazal Tov for opening the American Embassy in Jerusalem. My name is Leah Goldin, and I believe you know who I am and heard my story, our story. I speak before you today, as in the 4 past years, as the mother of Lieutenant Hadar Goldin, an Israeli soldier who died at the age of 23 while defending his country and whose remains are held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, along with another fallen soldier, Sergeant Ron Shaul. Let us be perfectly clear about what happened. Hamas publicly promised the United Nations and the United States that it would honor the humanitarian ceasefire while sending terrorists through a tunnel to ambush Israeli soldiers when they had let their guard down in light of the ceasefire. Hamas' intention was not only to kill Israeli soldiers under cover of a ceasefire, but to kidnap them as well in order to hold them hostage. This is why they snatched Hadar after the attack and dragged him back to Gaza and into the tunnel. Immediately after Hamas' violation of the ceasefire, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon released an official statement saying that he condemns in the strongest term the reported violation by Hamas of a mutually agreed humanitarian ceasefire. He added that such moves call into question the credibility of Hamas' assurances to the United Nations and demanded the immediate and unconditional release of the captured soldier. The U.S. response to Hamas' treachery was just as strong, with both President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry condemning the attack and demanding immediate and unconditional return of Hadar. We parents who live in Israel understand that our children bear a tremendous burden of defending the nation against those who seek to destroy it. We are not the first Israeli parents to lose a beloved child in combat in defense of their country, and sadly, we will not be the last. But perhaps we do suffer a different sort of pain because our son was not a victim of the war in Gaza, but a victim of the ceasefire, a humanitarian ceasefire brokered and sponsored by United Nations and the United States. What happened after Hadar was killed and kidnapped? What happened after the leaders of the UN and US condemned Hamas and called for his immediate return? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. 3.5 years later, while my son's empty grave is in hometown, awaits his return to be buried, and while my family's agony continue, we have received nothing but sympathy. At the same time, the international community, at the conference convened in October 2014 by the United Nations, pledged more than $5.4 billion to rebuild Gaza. Humanitarian aid for Gaza, they call it. Not one member of state raised an objection that perhaps the international community should not reward Hamas, a serial violator of the international law. Not one member state insisted that the very least that Hamas should do before receiving international aid is return my fallen son. Not soldiers that have been taken hostage during war. Buddies, my sons remain. I gave birth to him. I raised him. I sent him to defend his country. I want him back. People of faith over the world understand that it is wrong to hold hostage bodies of fallen soldiers. Islam adheres to these principles. It is a well-known tradition in Islam that the Prophet himself instructed his followers to refrain from ransoming the body of fallen opponent, inviting the enemy to come and bring its fallen soldiers to proper burial. And so even the International Committee for the Red Cross has called for the return of the bodies of Hadar and Ron. My husband Simcha and I have suffered the most terrible tragedy that anyone can suffer, the loss of a child. This is an unbearable experience that had been made even more terrible due to the fact that we have been prevented from grieving our son and giving proper burial. Hadar, my son, with his unforgettable smile, his incredible paintings, and in his sage writing, who showed how simple it is to love another person. Hadar, who helped those in need and set his mission in life to bring people together, religious and non-religious alike. Why is my Hadar still there? Hadar left behind not only us, his grieving parents, but also his 2 brothers and sister and his young nephews and nieces. And you should also know that Hadar left behind his fiancée. He was killed 30 days before he was to celebrate his marriage. Our grief and loss are all more painful because Hamas continues to hold our son's body as a bargaining chip. My child's body is a political instrument. My husband Simcha and I are here today to ask you to actively be on the right side of history, to help us fix this injustice. As God said to Cain in the 4th chapter of Genesis, the voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the earth. The voice of the blood of Hadar, Goldin, and Arutz Sheva calls out to you all to take action to correct this terrible wrong. To be practical, we believe that the best way to motivate Hamas to return the bodies is to make it clear that the reconstruction of Gaza is not unconditional. Right now, there is a window of opportunities. Once Hamas signed reconciliation agreement with the Palestinian Authority, this means that the Palestinian Authority is now legally accountable for Hadar Doron. Most importantly, Hadar is now officially in the hands of the Palestinian authorities and its leadership. Quoting Professor Evan Kotler at the UN Security Council on last December 2017, Hamas, by continuing to illegally withhold the remains of Hadar Goldin and that of Arutz Sheva, is in standing violation of the International Criminal Court prohibition against committing outrages upon the dignity of the deceased by violating the right to interment, and where the inhuman withholding of the remains of Hadar Goldin and Arutz Sheva, subject to the Palestinian authorities as a responsible governing party to the accountability before the International Criminal Court if it does not, as it can and it must, remedy this ongoing and outrageous violation. That said, we should all do all that's in our power to increase international pressure on Hamas and PA, as well as on the international community, especially the United States, that is a natural mediator and negotiator between Israel and the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a good look at your own children and grandchildren. Think of how much they mean to you. Please let us not leave this world knowing that our son is still far and unburied. To the international community we say, if sitting aside and looking the other way is a political statement, then it's the wrong one. Please keep us in your hearts, and let's all remember that as long as Kol Israel Arevim Ze Baze, we can and should do wonders. Bring Hadar home. Thank you. And Mazal Tov.